Hi guys, Dr. Axe here,
Dr. Benner?
and really excited. Today's a big deal. A lot of people are researching this, and when it comes to anxiety, um, your genetics play a huge role, right? Genetics, as far as who's more at risk for gut issues, autoimmune issues, anxiety. There's a genetic factor here. Now, the good news is with the epigenetics, we can actually control our genetics and we can treat things like anxiety. So, we're going to go over the different snippets, DNA factors, and through proper nutrition supplementation, how you can actually change this. So, um, again, this is called the anxiety answer. So, what is anxiety? I'm going to give you guys a recap and we're going to jump into those details. Anxiety is not a disease, okay? It's not something that you're born with, even though there's genetic predispositions. It's entire body dysfunction, okay? And this includes neurotransmitter issues, which we're going to tell you how to test for and how to correct. It's neurotransmitter issues, endocrine system, such as your thyroid, such as your hormones, and brain health, okay? If you inflame the brain, right, your brain is where anxiety is created. That's where energy is created. That's where fear and happiness are created, is in the brain. So it's really an issue of the brain not having the neurotransmitters it needs to work properly, right? So again, it's dysfunction of the brain not working right. It's not a disease, okay? All right, so what causes anxiety? Last time we talked about gut imbalances and we talked about adrenals and hormones in part two. And then the previous time, part three, we talked about toxicity issues. And today we're going to talk about genetics and deficiencies and how to correct those. And next week we're going to talk about emotional stressors. So, a little recap: 0 to 100% health. You have a symptom at 60% organ function, disease at 40% function. Our healthcare system treats people from 0 to 40%. That's why you're frustrated, you're not getting results. We treat people from 20% to 100%. So why are people with anxiety given antidepressants and not getting anywhere? So most doctors are running tests to look for emergencies and major disease. That's it. They will tell you, hey, your blood work looks normal. You probably just have anxiety, and they'll give you a random diagnosis, throw you a medication just to get you out of the door. Okay? The tests they're running are normal because they're looking for disease instead of dysfunction. And we're going to go over this kinds of testing at the end here. There's inaccurate blood work. Common blood tests show what's in the blood, but not what's actually inside your cell. Okay, that's why we do urine testing, saliva testing, because that's showing what's left over in your tissues instead of what's running through your blood. All right, so we talked about the gut. I just want to hit on that one more time because of what a big deal the gut is here. That is where you make neurotransmitters. That's your sense of happiness and calmness. It's all made on the gut. So go back to part one or two because that's a really big deal. It's okay. And then we also talked about the adrenals and your hormones. We all know females, right? When you hit your cycle and your hormones go out of whack, you get anxiety, you get moody, you get depressed. So your hormones, that's a good example of why hormones are important. We talked about pregnenolone steal and how you start out with cholesterol, you make pregnenolone, and then your body makes cortisol, your stress hormone. And if it steals the cortisol, then you don't make estrogen, testosterone, DHEA, everything else that you need for proper mood. So go back to part two if you want to learn more about that. So Doc, if you want to kind of take it away and jump into the genetics and the testing that we do.
So, guys, as Dr. Axe is talking about, this is just one part of many, many different aspects of dysfunction that can be in the body that can actually cause depression and anxiety. So, genetics, if we think about our genes, the Human Genome Project, what we understand about genetics, epigenetics, and even SNPs right now, we're basically in inning one. First batter up and so on and so forth. We are just learning about this. We're at the beginning stages. So what we want to do is we want to go over some stats right through here, but we're really going to keep this simple because when we're talking about single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs, basically thinking about variations in our genetic code, it can get really, really deep in the woods. So we're just going to keep it really simple so you can go home and you can apply some of these things. But right now we're actually in trouble, folks, because as our gut breaks down, as we become more in a toxified world, as we have imbalance of our neurotransmitters due to many of these things, as you see via these stats, we're getting in a lot of trouble. 322 million people suffer from depressive disorders in 2015. I'd venture to guess that everybody listening to this program tonight, with COVID going on, would realize that those numbers are going on up in 2020. Suicide rates increased by 24% in the U.S. since 1999. These are stats just up to 2015. Most vulnerable in our population are ages 10 to 14 years of age females, 200% increase. 20 years ago, they would be talking about, well, that's really not a reality because teenagers don't have depression. That is becoming the biggest segment that is suffering from this type of issue. Suicide rates increased 24% since 1999. We went over that. So let's go over the SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms, folks. These are things that you are born with, you will always have. You're not going to change these. But what we can do is by understanding the mechanisms of these SNPs, we can actually take some action steps nutritionally and lifestyle to actually mitigate the negative effects. And we're going to be focusing on two SNPs tonight that basically actually will affect your physical and mental health. So if we think about our DNA sequence, all the SNP is a little bit of variant in that genetic sequence. A SNP doesn't necessarily have to make us weaker or more prone to disease. As a matter of fact, you're going to learn tonight that a SNP can actually make us stronger in certain areas. But we're going to talk about the two SNPs that actually are most involved in depression and mood disorders and mental health, and that is going to be MTHFR. Now, there's many different variants of MTHFR and COMT. But let's just talk about them as individual SNPs, even though there's many of each one of those, CMT and MTHFR. So what we will do is we'll talk about SNPs that are only highly researched, relevant clinically, which means relevant clinically, that means that we know that that particular SNP actually can cause some type of disorder, some type of imbalance, and so on and so forth, but also responsive to care, which means that in the clinical realm, we actually have proven that there are certain activities, actions, methodologies, tools that we can utilize to actually get a clinical response. So remember when I said that in the genetic realm, we're actually in inning number one? There are so many SNPs out there, folks, that certain doctors, certain specialists will talk about that really do not have a lot of research behind them, don't have a lot of clinical evidence behind them, and there's certainly not at this time a lot of clinical tools that will give good clinical responses to. So here at Axe Holistic, we only look at the SNPs that are researched, clinically relative, and then responsive to care. MTHFR, like I said, MTHFR, there's many variants of MTHFR, but in generally, MTHFR is that SNP is actually going to stop the process of proper folate activation. Folate activation is going to be very key for us to produce proper serotonin levels, not only in our gut, but in our brain. And if we do not produce proper serotonin levels, as we're going to find out, that can affect our mood. That can play a significant role in depression. COMT is another SNP that has to do with dopamine clearing. Now, dopamine is a neurotransmitter that you're going to find out is the neurotransmitter that is of reward, of motivation. It gives our get up and go. Serotonin, on the other hand, gives us relaxation, gives us a feeling of safety, and so on and so forth. And just like anything in the body, folks, serotonin and dopamine have to have this nice natural dance together. They can't be too high, they can't be too low, they have to be balanced. When they're balanced, we have good mental health. When they are not balanced, when things aren't going right, it can make us open to depression, mood disorders, mental issues. So again, dopamine plays a role in how we feel and gives us pleasure, reward, motivation. Why do you think people take drugs? People that take meth, cocaine, they are actually getting a very, very high dose of dopamine, and it keeps that dopamine in that neurotransmitter for a long period of time. Eventually, they burn out, of course. This also gives us the ability to think and plan. And serotonin regulate mood, happiness, plays a role in anxiety. Low levels of serotonin are linked to depression, as we talked about. So, like I said, MTHFR is just one category of many variants of this SNP. So let's go over how this works. So if we go through this serotonin pathway, we see that our serotonin actually starts with amino acid tryptophan. And then what happens is that MTHFR basically enzyme will actually cause the transfer of tryptophan to 5-HTP and down the road to serotonin, melatonin. Okay, what does melatonin do? Melatonin allows us to sleep. Proper serotonin levels allow us to sleep and relax. But one thing I want you to understand, folks, is we look at this diagram, we not only see that we have folate there, which is going to allow this whole pathway to run. And if we're deficient in this and we don't have enough of that, this pathway won't run. But we also have vitamin D. We also have vitamin B6. We also have zinc. So you can see that, again, the SNPs are just one part of the proper process of developing these neurotransmitters. If we don't have proper gut health and we're not absorbing these nutrients, what's going to happen? We're going to have issues as well. So if we have any type of breakdown right through here, we can't get to that 5-HTP, and then we don't get down to our bottom level right through here, serotonin and melatonin. If we have that SNP, we're not stuck though, because what we can do is we can take a certain nutrient to be able to get that enzymatic activity going, but also we can supplement you with 5-HTP, which is one step down the line from that tryptophan, and then we can start producing the serotonin. Now, the problem is if we hear that serotonin comes from tryptophan, you can give tryptophan in many cases and start pushing down this pathway. But on the other hand, if you don't have this SNP, the MTHFR SNP, and you start producing serotonin, but you also have inflammation of the brain, which we're going to go to right through here. And by the way, this is organic acids test. This is a test that Dr. Axe is going to be talking about a little bit. Almost every one of our patients that comes in for evaluation eventually will have the organic acid test, because this allows us to access and see where our stress hormones are right through here, epinephrine, norepinephrine. Homovalinate is going to represent your dopamine. And this right through here is going to represent the metabolite for your tryptophan and serotonin. But the problem is, folks, if you give tryptophan and these two markers are high, quinolinate and picolinate, we talked about this last week or the week before. If you give tryptophan and we have these markers high, this means that you have brain inflammation. The problem is, folks, is that if you're giving tyrosine, or not tryptophan, and your brain's inflamed, instead of going to serotonin, it's actually going to go down these pathways right through here and actually inflame your brain even more. So you have to make sure that you understand the full picture. So if we have tryptophan depletion, what can this lead to? Behavioral inhibition, impulsiveness, increased aggression, executive functioning deficiencies. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Decreased recognition of fear, impaired learning and memory. Very, very important. What's even more important, folks, is the mamas that are out there. Because we have MTHFR and we are doing, we're taking supplements, just regular folate or what we consider folic acid. What's going to be happening is that very, very important nutrient that is not getting fully activated is not going to be serving mama, and it's also going to be not serving the child. As you see, folate supports healthy brain function, growth of red blood cells. This nutrient is critical in the early pregnancy for development of the brain, spine, and unborn child. Folks, how many mamas out there, or mamas to be, are taking a prenatal vitamin that has folic acid in it? Number one, folic acid is derived from coal tar. Okay, it's a synthetic form of folic acid. And if you have a variant of MTHFR, you are not activating that folate. Thus, you're not getting the full benefit of that vitamin and can lead to issues. So this is another example of when we have inflammation of the brain, how that tryptophan, via this inflammation, will actually stimulate this enzyme and cause quinoleic acid and actually cause glutamate to be produced, which is actually a neurotoxin to the brain. So we just can't randomly throw amino acids at our body. We need to understand what's going on with our genes, with our SNPs, with our epigenetics. All right, so folks down the road, what's going to happen? Dr. Axe is going to be able to take you to the store. He's going to be able to show you how you can utilize a supplement such as mood stasis. And but before we do that, let's actually talk about our second SNP, and that is COMT. COMT is another SNP that actually, when we are producing dopamine, our neurotransmitters should be cleared. Remember, that is a neurotransmitter, get up and go, aggression, reward. It makes us accomplish things. But that synapse in that neurotransmitter actually has to clear that. COMT, basically, the COMT SNP doesn't allow that enzyme to clear that neurotransmitter, which is called dopamine. So, COMT can cause two different things. If we have dopamine that's too low or normal, this favors what we consider the warrior individual, superior response under stressful situations. But these individuals don't necessarily shine in the executive functioning, deep thought process as far as organization and things that we think of the CEO that would do that. They do very, very well in under stressful situations, but the CEO thought process is not their top talent. Now, on the other hand, when you have the COMT SNP, remember I said, just because you have a SNP does not mean you have a weakness. It actually can give you benefits. When you have the COMT SNP and it's an active SNP, what happens is that dopamine is not cleared from the synapse. And these people can tend to dwell on things. They tend to not let things go. And they burn on out. And they're chronically in that fight or flight situation. They tend to fall apart under stress. We know those people. But you know what? The benefit is that when they're not under a stressful situation, when they're in a calm situation, they tend to have better executive function, which means organizational skills, deep thought, reflective process. So there's always a positive and negative. Now, one of the things that we will give our patients, now it becomes way beyond this. When you see Dr. Axe and I for your assessment, and we recommend that when you have a chance to go and get the test called 23andMe, because when you have that test, we can actually plug it into a database, into a program that we have that will allow us to see your strengths, your weaknesses, where your SNPs are, and the ones that are researched, ones that are clinically relevant, and the ones that we actually will have protocols that have been proven to be effective for the SNP. And SAMe is one of the supplements, and this particular supplement will have SAMe, which is a universal methyl donor, but also has a lot of the other cofactors that will allow people that have COMT to start processing that dopamine effectively. So, like I said, the test that we talked about when the organic acid test, Dr. Axe is going to be talking about that in a little bit, but he's also going to show you how you can actually access these supplements if you want to research them. Doc, you want to take over?
Yes. All right. So, next thing. So, I'm going to show you guys our website where you can access a lot of this information. So, let's go here to the website. So, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of our home website, axeholisticmedicine.com, members only. So in that portal, you click that, and you're going to be able to get all the access, the supplements that we utilize, gut protocols, hormone protocols, all that, different dietary recommendations I made last time. You can find that on here. If you want to purchase any of those products, just hit the Supplement e-store, and that'll bring you to that. All right. And I did want to make an offer for everyone that's watching. You know, our goal here is we know, we do this because myself, Dr. Benner, my mom, like we've all been through things where this was the only answer. Conventional medicine is not going to give you the answers that you need. We're so busy with work, we don't have money, we don't have time, we don't have blah blah blah. I mean, it's life is crazy, but you gotta mentally find time to put into your health, reduce your stress, get rid of anxiety, and I just can't imagine where I'd be if I hadn't done these tests and made these changes. I'd be on who knows how many medications, tired all the time, sick all the time. This is not, some people say, oh, that test or whatever, that's a car payment. I'm like, yeah, exactly. If you can get your health back for a car payment, your health is infinitely more important than your car. Okay, this is not just your health, is your ability to enjoy life and want to be alive. Okay, that's how important this is. Okay, and we have the answers, and that's why we're excited to share this information to people. So, anyways, we just want to make it affordable where people can have access to this and it actually be possible. That's what we're giving you, where you can get supplements. We're giving you free protocols on our website. But for those of you who want to do testing and sit down with us, we have a special offer, basically where you can get either the organic acids test, which we went over last video. You can get the Dutch hormone test, or you can gut and stool testing. Those tests are normally around $330, and we normally charge around $165 for our consults. So for $395, we can send you a test ahead of time, which will save you an office visit, and that includes a review with us where we go over that. We figure out what diet you need to be on, what your test results show, and we'll put all the protocols together so you can actually do it yourself at that point. Or maybe you just want to sit down with me and Dr. Benner, go over 23andMe, go over your genetics, figure out what kind of regular blood work you want done. It's only $125 if you're watching this Facebook Live that you can get that. So again, just want to give you the resources that you need so that you guys can get the changes that you want. Now, in order to get this, so back to our website, just scroll to the very top of our website here. Scroll down a little bit. It says Anxiety Answer Special Offer and Slideshow. Boom, you click on that. You can get the slides we're going over. Looks like we're having an issue there. I'm going to have to fix that. I'll get that working, but you guys can go there or just go to Take Next Steps, Schedule Now. Put your name, email, phone number, what you're interested in. Hey, I was watching the anxiety workshop. I'd like to get organic acids test and so forth. So I hope that helps you guys. And, again, the organic acids test, the Dutch testing, we have all the tests to look at genetic SNPs, look at B vitamin deficiencies, glutathione issues. Again, you can get more of the information on the previous Facebook Live. But again, thank you guys for joining. And we look forward to next week. We're going to do number 5, which is emotional stressors. Okay, that's a big one for a lot of us. Awesome. Thanks, guys.